As always, Priscilla goes first.
What? Why?
You say the first question.
Oh. Should I close the door here? Just a second.
That's not the question.
Will Moiraine survive the wheel?
In the Wheel of Time ever top episode 4.
And with all the trauma we experienced in episode 4, will we actually forget to acknowledge Gai'don and Galad's trauma during episode 3? We'll answer those questions and more coming up on Bustin' Blockbusters. Welcome back to Bustin' Blockbusters. Double M here with you, Matt Murdock. Thanks for joining us today. We are talking about the Wheel of Time Season 3, Episode 3, Seeds of the Shadow. The White Cloaks are instilling fear among the people of the Two Rivers. Liandrin is addressing old personal grievances while Elayne and Nynaeve continue their search for the Black Aja within the White Tower, and Matt struggles with memories from within. This episode was directed by Thomas Napper. It's also directed the fourth episode, written by Beverly Okhio. And then the fourth episode is entitled The Road to the Spear. Rand faces the forgotten history of his family as Moiraine learns the devastating truth of her future. That's a much shorter thing because we only focused on two characters. This one was written by the showrunner, Rafe Judkins, and again, directed by Thomas Napper. I would like to issue a correction in the talk. Bubba, you don't have to worry. We're not going to spoil you. But in the spoiler section, we talked a lot about Galad last week, and I won't say why. But we found out that the credits of the episodes that Galad is in actually revealed that his last name is not Trakand. He was introduced as Galad of House Trakand, but he wasn't necessarily named Trakand. His last name is instead Damodred, according to the credits, which we'll take as that's the character's name. You might remember that that's also Moiraine's last name. So for you folks who don't know what I'm talking about, just put that in your pipe and smoke it until we see whether it means anything in this show or not. It may or may not. Also, I wanted to say that I didn't catch it the first time around, but I did rewatch episode 2, and that was actually Rima Sedai, who was trying to heal Matt's mind. So that means she made it out of Tenchiko. Remember, we saw her getting collared when she was defending Nynaeve and Elayne, but she evidently made it out once the Shan-Chan were defeated. So that's fantastic for Rima because there are other things that could have happened, and hopefully we won't have to worry about that now. Hey, hi, I'm Matt. I'm your editor here, and I want to let you know our conversation was so long and yet still not really complete. So what we're doing is we're dividing this discussion up into 2 separate episodes that you should be getting, a couple days after. You'll get the second one a couple days after the first one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put, because it's the most recent episode, I'm going to put all of the Threefold Land talk from episode 3 and 4 into this particular podcast. And then you'll get everything else, including our segments and all of that, in the next podcast. We will give you the ratings for episodes 3 and 4 in this podcast, and then all of the discussion for anything that didn't happen in the Threefold Land during episodes 3 and 4 will be in the next podcast. Thanks for watching. I will also say this. There might be some minor book spoilers in this podcast. Nothing that's going to shake your world. So use your own judgment. But if you start to hear something that you don't want to know, turn us off. I get that. Thanks. Back to our regularly scheduled discussion. I think that we've talked about everything that we need to talk about. Once again, I have Priscilla with me at PriscillaTV1 on YouTube. I have Bubba with me at Double P Media on YouTube and at the word double the letters PHQ across all social media. I want to get to their ratings of the third episode. Priscilla, give me your rating of episode 3 of season 3 of The Wheel of Time.
Well, for me, it was a 9.6 double Fs.
Double Fs?
Yeah.
It's Forsaken's festivals.
Oh.
Yeah, we had the Dark Friends Social on season 2, and to keep the tradition of season 3, we have the Forsaken's festivals. That was like an annual meeting of the Forsakens where they air grievances, and
and exchange gifts of
I'm
compulsion.
just joking. There is no festivals. Festivals is just a Seinfeld creation. But this reminded me because like they just met and started immediately like pointing fingers at each other. So it was fun. It was a fun time. And we were introduced by Samuel, which is like a short man with a short man complex. Again, we saw our Mongedian, and we learned that Elayne is lovable and loving stepdaddy is actually another sort of person, let's say. Like there is some sort of compulsion going on because he has only. I loved learning that the guy has been just unlocked for 1 month and he's already like, yep. He already got in with a queen. He made everybody believe that he's this amazing guy that, like everybody hates Gawain and Galad, but has to keep up with them. So relatable. But no, he is a Forsaken. Yeah. So great episode. I laughed a lot. I really liked the humor in it. And I enjoyed every second of it.
Bubba, how about you? How would you rate season 3, episode 3 of The Wheel of Time?
Matt, I am going to go with a odd rating. And I liked episode 3 of season 3 more than I liked episode 2 of season 3. But I'm going to give it the exact same rating. And that's 7 quadruple Fs out of 10.
Quadruple Fs?
Yeah.
That's Fail's fairy facial features. That actress looked so unique in ethereal and fairy-like. It was incredible. I did like episode 3 more than episode 2, but spoiler alert, I loved episode 4. So I'm trying to keep everything relative. So if episode 4 is the rating it's going to be, I'm going to keep episode 3 down to a 7. There's a lot of good stuff in it, but then a bit like season 2, there's one storyline that I'm yet to connect with, which is heartbreaking. I haven't read these books. I don't know what's going to happen. And I just wish some of the storylines we visit here in season 3 were pulling me in more. So still very good. I know 7 feels like a middling grade. I'd still give it about a B, but as we talk about episode 4, you're going to hear me rave. So 7 out of 10 from me, Matt.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bubba. I've never experienced anything being in the 70s being a B, but good for you. You grew up on a grade, obviously.
Curve. Let's go.
Yeah. So Fail's fairy facial features. Excellent. Yeah. I can't do that one, but I did do triple Ds.
What score? Triple Ds?
Yeah, triple Ds stand for Doorway Doom Discoveries, as in men saw Matt, his situation, when that's why she's obviously deciding to follow him to Tanchico. I gave it a 9.4 out of 10.
Oh.
To me, it's not as good as the first episode like you, but it still has one of my favorite scenes from the books, and this one's from book 3, because as a book reader, I have longed for that scene, and Rafe finally promised it to us. He said that we would get a version that we would like. Nothing's going to beat the books on that, but it was still darn good. I really loved it. And I loved the intrigue of Elida trying to plot, doing things. I love the Forsaken meeting, the Festivus, as Priscilla called it. Thought that was fantastic. Clearly, Robin was not fooling anybody, because Bubba, you called it in episode 2. But I love all of the finger pointing, all of the disruption between them, because they're all fighting for this spot that Ishamael has now vacated, seemingly, and that's interesting. They call it the Nameless, and that's the spot that they all really want. And evidently, the Dark One has not proclaimed anyone to be that yet. So,
except Lanfear. Lanfear is Team Ishamael. Lanfear already said, "Oh, maybe Ishamael is coming back. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
hope that's not a spoiler, lanfear. Come on, I haven't read the
Yeah.
books.
Well, just hang in there. We'll see, I suppose, as time goes on. If that is a spoiler that Lanfear gave, then the show has done much worse, giving other kinds of spoilers. Let's rate the Ruidian episode. This one is called Road to the Spear. Pablo, I want to hear your rating first this time, if that's all right.
Well, I'm only, and this sounds silly, I'm only going 9.5 double BDs and a single T out of 10.
I have
Double
no idea
BDs
what
and
that
a
means.
single T. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Double BDs and a single T means bout damn time. This was the greatest episode. How do you get across the wheel of time in this cycle of life that people are going through and all the lore? You could do it in an info dump. Shows and even the Wheel of Time have made it interesting conversation or interesting flashback, but this was it. I was thinking to myself as the non-book reader, I was thinking, oh my God, if they could have had this episode somehow in season 1. And I know you may be thinking, well, that's kind of silly. You needed to go through this history with the characters. You needed to experience all they experienced to really appreciate it. And I understand that part of it, but this was an eye-opener to a non-book reader. I loved it. I love how the world is so well thought out. The Aiel have wise women, while the Wetlanders have Aes Sedai. The Aiel have this rite of passage to go through the City of the Clouds, while the Aes Sedai have this rite of passage to go through the Arches. This episode would have been a 10 out of 10 for me, but there were two minor things. Number one, I think for me, I needed a scene of Egwene and Rand together before he left on his rite of passage through the glass towers or whatever the glass things are there. And then second, the show has never done a great job with me of explaining the animosity Rand has towards Moiraine, mainly because in the very first episode, Moiraine saves his town from a Trolloc attack and then saves his dad's life. I could never get around the fact that Rand had such hatred for Moiraine. And so, but I'm all through that. It looks like Rand is through that. 9.5 out of 10. Loved it.
Excellent. Priscilla, how about you? How did you rate it?
Well, it's my favorite episode of the series. I could easily give it a 10, but we are supposed to be like criticizing things here, reviewing, I don't know. So I feel
don't just glorify it.
No.
We'll leave the criticizing to the people in the comments.
No, I'm going to abide by the rules. The rules, like we never give 10s. I don't know if these rules are rules actually.
Not a rule.
So it's a 9.899999 triple R's.
Triple R's.
Yeah, that's this episode was Rand's Ruidian road trip.
Heck yes, it is.
Because he's uncovering a lot of truths, a lot of things, tracing back in the footsteps of his ancestors, his bloody ancestors, and that's like exactly why no wetlander can go to the City of Clouds. No, they cannot go because I suppose there has to be this blood connection there. Otherwise, the whole magic doesn't work. And even there, back then, he managed to share some sweet moments with pre-lanfear, that we find out that she actually meant well. Kind of, I don't know. Like it sounded like a very ambitious goal that she had, and she was a scientist, and it was good to see lanfear without all her machinations. Her and Rand not like in this romantic setting, but actually talking like two human beings, you know?
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't Rand and she wasn't lanfear, but like you get the gist. And meanwhile, you have Moiraine. Unfortunately, she's trapped in this thing, in this like possible futures that are spinning to her. And it was basically 20% of the episode was with Moiraine and the rest was with Rand. And not only Moiraine is my favorite, but I really think they managed to portray her tripped down to the future lane in a visual way that it was very effective. And even though it was not that long time that we spent there, we could see that you didn't actually want to spend any minute there where she was actually.
I agree.
She was in agony, just like Aviendha was. And we don't even see what Aviendha sees. But like with Moiraine, it was half of the time she was trying to get into the good graces of Rand, and then the other half of time she was killing Rand, and all the time she was being killed by lanfear. So there is no escape. With lanfear, Moiraine does not have a chance. So I adore it. I really think it was great. Also, that Rand waits for her in the end. That really touched me. That really, I think it was, like Baba said, I never understood very well why Rand is so against Moiraine. And it has also to do with the immaturity, I think, of the character. He's an immature boy. He doesn't know, and he's really just afraid of being manipulated and being bossed around by this very powerful woman that comes one day and changes his life. Don't be such a jerk, just try to be a little bit better, but at this point in the story, they started finding common ground for like going through this experience together. Rand there is really becoming an adult, and I really liked it. It was a stunning episode.
Absolutely. I'm going to give it just under what I gave the episode rating for episode 1 of the season. I'm going to give it. Now, listen.
Go 10 out of 10, Matt. Come on, somebody has to.
9.7 double A's.
Double A's.
Yeah. Apologies to Aviendha, which was one of the many things that just moved me practically to tears. That is just an amazing episode. I had the feels from every gamut, from the mother sending Luwin away the way that she did, from seeing the breaking of the world as the wagons are taking off during the Age of Legends, to seeing Perrin, who later becomes lanfear, but at that moment is not. She's simply doing science, and she's doing it. And there was a line in there that rings through. Doesn't matter whether you've read the books or not. When she says, "No, nothing is like more important than being with the people that you love," or whatever it was that she said. That is so lanfear. That's exactly what she's doing now. And she would do anything for that. And so it's pretty amazing to see all of this unfold in the way just through Rand's trips through his ancestors. And remember, it's not his soul that is traveling back in time. He's traveling back to the bodies of his ancestors. He's living in the soul of Luwin. He's living in the soul of all of these ancestors of his, and it has nothing to do with Lews Therin. It's completely separate from that. What happens to a soul in the Wheel of Time is you die, it goes to a place, and then it comes back in somebody else. That's what the cycling of the wheel is. So I loved how that was done. And this episode, just if you're wondering why the showrunner would suddenly take on this episode, well, I think that the result is pretty obvious. But if you think back to Game of Thrones time, and you'll hear countless interviews of Dave and Dan for HBO or whatever, saying that if they could just get to the 9th episode of season 3, I won't even say what it is, just in case somebody doesn't know, even though it's been 10 years. If they could just get to that episode, they'd know they'd really made it. And I think that this is one of those episodes for Rafe in terms of the status of this series. And there may be a couple more like that in the future. And we'll just have to hope that he's not, at least he has a full source material to draw from, whereas Dave and Dan did not. But I think that he really did it well. He did make changes. Some of them I'll just say most of them I liked. I would have liked to seen a couple more visions because I think there's something like 9 visions in the book. And there was only like 6 or 7 here, and one of them didn't happen in the book at all. Those are very nitpicky things. So I'm not going to say anything more about that. I'm not going to be too hard on it as a book reader, as some types of fans are. And I get that if you're that way, but I'm not going to rail this season because it's my last season covering anything. And why not be positive on my way out? So that's it. 9.7 double A's for me. And we learned that we know nothing about the Aiel until we get to episodes 3 and 4.
Here,
So let's
get there. Yes.
Let's get into the threefold land here. During episode 3, we hear talk of the Shido, their rival clan to the Taradad, which is the group that Rand and Egwene and Moiraine and Lan are with. We can talk more about. They show up in episode 4, so we can talk about them when we get there. If you remember the Tuathlon, who we met in season 1 that Perrin and Egwene hung out with, well, they've evidently have been traveling in the threefold land and got attacked, and possibly by the Shido. That's how that whole topic comes up. You've got Bear, who realizes Egwene says she's getting hurt in their dreams, and Bear says, well, that can only be from someone who is living, not from someone who is dead. Right. And we already know that lanfear is using Teleron Riyadh to get into Egwene's dream. So that's nothing new to us, but it's new to Egwene. And then we have lanfear in Teleron Riyadh at the same time that she's torturing Egwene, bringing up the Sakarman, which is brought up heavily in episode 4 as well. She says, they think they can destroy the Dark One. I got issues with that, but the whole idea of what happens to her after, she was inferring that she would just cease to exist, right? Is that what she was inferring? And Rand was saying, lanfear, you can't.
I didn't take it that way, Matt, but okay, sure.
I mean, maybe I misread it. It's just, she doesn't really answer. She just kind of looks at him with those doe eyes, and he evidently thinks that it means something bad for her, even if they do destroy the Dark One. So I don't know. That was kind of interesting. Everybody loves a good sweat tent, better than saunas, ladies and gentlemen. Because there's nothing like still being dirty and steamy and sweaty, especially when you're in the hottest region of the whole world. That just works for me. I don't know. Does it work for any of you?
But while we're there, now I want to, let me have a confession as a non-book reader. In season 2, if you listen to our podcast, I was always moaning about Lan's storyline.
Well, he peed on a tree. What are you talking about? Most interesting storyline ever.
I didn't connect with it at all. But this development where it's like, his kingdom, fact check me, you guys, has been overtaken by the Blight. He's lost his kingdom. He was a ruler. He was maybe next in line, whatever it was. And his people are still out there, and his people want to reclaim their land from the Blight. I think that's a great story, and it allows me an insight into Lan and kind of almost a story point into Lan that I didn't have in season 2, when that character, to me, felt a bit aimless on his, kind of search for a purpose.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad that kind of. I think this episode helped too. The way finally you see how 4? Good. Yeah, I think episode 4 really helped with the whole thing with Aviendha as well, because that was just fun for both of them. I love it. That's why they call it dancing the spears, because the act of fighting like that, or in their case sparring, is just such a joy to all of them. And lanfear is pretty good at it. He reminds Rand, that find that flame and void, and then this time I'll actually try. Yeah, I just love that. You don't realize what an incredible fighter Lan is until you have to see him in action. That's how he was able to take out Tin Shan all by himself in season 2, even though there should have been 300 coming at him. And that's why he was able to handle all of those Trollocs in the very first episode. So that I love this further deeper look into Lan as you did. The Malkiri survivor is named Melindra, but she was adopted by the Tardad Aiel, and she is a spear maiden there. So she'll maybe be an important aspect in Lan's future as far as will he be able to get Malkiri back someday? I think that's the goal there. Anything else about Melindra or anything like that, Priscilla?
No, nothing. I
Okay.
think it was just like very interesting the way they introduced her, like that she was kind of flirting with Moiraine, but it wasn't.
Well, she was flirting with Lan because he's their king.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Gai'don. And Bubba, I know you asked the question, who the heck are these people? And I put that down after I'd watched episode 3. I think you get a little bit better explanation of them in episode 4. And that is, there's this, and we learned a little bit about it in season 2, but there is this code of honor called Giato that the Aiel honor among many rules and regulations and things. It's very hard to understand and to explain little by little throughout the books. But this concept of toe is meaning that you owe somebody something. So what the Gai'don are doing is they're serving their toe because whoever touched them in battle without killing them was able to touch them without battle, earned so much G, which is the opposite of toe. And so the person who got touched owes the toe to the person who touched them. And as a result, it basically is a slave for lease. And I don't like that. I don't like that concept at all, because after a certain period of time, then their toe is met, and then they are let go. So it's not permanent slavery.
No, this sounds more indentured servitude than slave for lease.
To me, indentured servitude is slavery. There's nothing different.
No, it has a light at the end of the tunnel. Slavery is like your property.
Well, indentured servitude can be manipulated to make it into slavery.
Yeah, but it has an end goal of like there is
which is not always reached.
Yeah, that you're not going to, if you're a slave, like if you're into slavery, you are.
I think this is a semantics argument. Let's move on.
Well, can I jump in? This show has 8 episodes. This better, I mean, they didn't really touch on it that much in the show. But if it doesn't really have a strong point going forward, they shouldn't have touched on it at all. Like, we've got 8 episodes. We don't have any time. We've got the Aiel tribes, the 2 tribes that we know about that are certainly not on friendly terms with each other. We've got Aviendha with her thing. We've got like a million people. We've got Jaime Lannister's wife talking about being a dream walker. We've got, we don't have any time. If
I'm with you.
Have a lot to do. Cut it. Skip it. Next.
Yeah, I just needed to put my opinion about Gai'don and the way that I hated them and hated their representation in the books.
Oh wow!
And so therefore, I'm gonna not like their representation in the show. The Flame in the Void, and this is something that Bubba, you've read the first 2 books. Even you will know about. You will remember Rand talking about the Flame in the Void, and I love that they brought this in. Again, it feels like they're just doing so much to try and course correct to appease book reader fans. But it was important in the way that it establishes Rand and Lan's relationship to me, more so than the actual mention of the Flame in the Void. Because Rand has now said, yes, I can confide in Lan. He's told that to Moiraine. And now we actually see it. So there's proof of it. And that shows their relationship deepening. So that I'm okay with. I don't know if there's anything more to say about that. No? Okay.
No, we got to move. We got a big vision quest to go on, man.
We talked about Avi and Lan's sparring match. Both of them just having fun.
Fun.
Yeah, just having fun. And now we know why Avi hates swords so much, why all Aiel hate swords, which we'll get into in a moment. We also know why Avi was mad. Priscilla, you brought it up last week, about Avi being really mad that she had been discovered to be with them. And this is why. She didn't want to become a wise one. She'd been trying to hide in the role of Maiden of the Spear. And I loved that whole scene. Not only just her asking to go to, her being upset that they were going to make her go to Viridian, but also the fact that Bear has been a Maiden of the Spear, evidently a really tough one, because I don't know how you break 3 spears over your knee like that. And I loved Moiraine's speech as well to her. I that was one of those movements, things that just really moved me in episode 4. What did you, Bubba? Was that a shock for you that this woman who's been obviously fierce with the spears and everything is suddenly like going to be a wise one?
It was a shock. Certainly, I didn't see it coming. But again, these are cramped, compact episodes. I thought it made perfect sense for what we've learned in this character named Bear, who I keep jokingly refer to because the actress in real life is married to the actor who played Jaime Lannister. That, it makes sense. She's the leader. She's in charge. Aviendha has already been a leader from what we've seen out leading her fellow Aiel in season 2. Of course, she's going to be leader. So that's the next step. Made perfect sense.
Excellent. Any other thoughts about Avi there, Priscilla? Or are we moving on?
It was very faithful to what happens in the books, down to a little bit of the dialogue too.
Yep.
I felt so, but it doesn't happen in the same
Right.
time.
Yeah. Avi
there
actually
was,
starts to take off before
She takes
Rand
off.
or Moiraine. Actually, I think
Yeah.
Avi and Moiraine go basically about the same time.
No,
And
there
Rand-
is Rand,
They go first.
and then she keeps running, and it's funny because
She
did you
passes
see
them. They
something?
see her as she
Yeah, it was
as
like-
she's going into Viridian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a chuckle. It was like, that was Aviendha.
I just meant that Moiraine and Avi were sent at about the same time, were they not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So Rand, we meet these Shido dudes, and I do not like the way they're pronouncing their names, but that's just a nitpick. That's a Matt's tomato. I can have a day off, mate, for that. When Rand asks, and this dude Couladin, as they're calling him, I just call him Couladin, because although you do say Sidine and Sidar, so I guess Couladin makes more sense. And Muradin, his brother, is already down in Viridian, and he doesn't like wetlanders at all. Evidently, he doesn't seem to like anything. So much so that he speaks out of turn and gets a little one power put on him by Bear. Wise ones can channel, some of them at least.
Good.
Bear can channel. This is one of the things that I think really intrigues Moiraine about the whole experience too. Well, and the fact that, basically Moiraine lets it slip that, oh yeah, Rand has to go through Viridian. So do you. Oops, I wasn't supposed to say that. Because Bear follows the Back to the Future timeline stories. You don't mess with future events. You don't affect future events by doing things in the present. Moiraine, not so much. Maybe so, but she kind of screws it up. But she's definitely Back to the Future type rules. Bears is, as opposed to Endgame. So just to put it in a perspective of even more greater pulp culture stuff. Anything about any of this stuff when Rand asks, and then of course Moiraine's doesn't want to get left out, so she has to ask too. And Egwene wants to go, and they say, "No, don't even ask. We're not going to say yes. So just shut up."
And just going back a little bit from the world building standpoint, you can infer that when you see the traveling people, the Tuatan dead, when they encounter them dead in the episode before, and they say it was a Shido, and then you go with Rand and you find out exactly the connection it is, and it's explained also in the episode 3 what is the the importance of going to Viridian, for any kind of leadership for the Aiel. You
Yeah.
have to go through this trial.
Yeah.
So if you are a woman, you have to face your possible
rings,
future. If you are a man, you have to learn the past, to
Through the
learn
columns.
where you came from and what you are. So you can infer that the Shaidu, they are there to get a new leader, right?
Right,
So
because Savannah
they
basically
are
says her
kind of
husband's
like-
dead, but I'm going to marry that guy that's in there now.
Yeah, so they are kind of leaderless, like they don't have a leader there. So they kind of lost this connection to their past. So you can infer that they attacked the Tuatan because they didn't know, possibly, kind of. And this is just bad news because they are already in the like third level of breaking.
Right,
To the
because
standpoint of
Jonai
the
basically
series.
said, you are always welcome to our fires. That was the thing that allows the Tuathalan to pass into the threefold land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Shaidu at this point in the series, they are already like kind of far too gone already in my reading of it.
But here's the other thing that I don't get, and this one is a nitpick, and then I'll have a day off me. When they're coming to Ruidian,
Yeah.
that's a pretty darn big tent that the Shaido have over there. How do they not see? How are they suddenly surprised when they get to the
I thought
top
the
of the
same
hill?
thing, Matt. I saw
it's
the
the
same
Shaido.
thing. Hey, there's somebody else here. Can I say
it was too dark.
They were in broad day. Oh, the tent was too dark. Okay, exactly.
In conclusion, what I was trying to say is like the Shaidu is they are exactly why the leaders of the clan leaders have to go to Ruidian because they cannot forget their past, and the Shaidus kind of forgot.
Yeah, none of them knew.
Pretty big.
The clan chief is dead. Yeah.
So they forgot, and they are.
And
the spoiler
on the way. You can't talk about it except to other chiefs.
Well, can I make a prediction? I have not read the books, but remember the prophecy that I was laughing about in the last podcast about episodes 1 and 2, where Aviendha was like, "Oh yeah, this is great. We're going to find the corn of Cobb, and he's going to kill half of us, the survivors." And I thought, if the corn of Cobb's going to ruin half of you, I bet it's the Shaido. They're jerks. So that's my prediction. Don't tell me anything.
He's going to ruin a lot more than just a half of them.
I think, in all honesty, at this point, I think the Shaido, they are ruining themselves.
They don't need Rand's help.
Rand might be, but not that.
But the prophecy is that a remnant of a remnant will be spared.
All right, I'm gonna have
so
to.
That's a very small amount. That was at the beginning of episode 2, I believe. So a new day comes, and Rand and Moiraine get their marching orders. Well, I guess it's the same day actually. They ask for permission. They're given the lowdown. They're given the rules. Don't tell us what the dead told you.
Right.
And leave your weapons at the spear line. I love this journey that they go on. And it starts with Moiraine unloading every single weapon that she has. It takes her 5 minutes. It takes her 5 minutes to get rid of all that stuff.
There was a great bit of comedic, like physical comedy there. And the fact that it was Rosamund Pike and he was that serious doing it, it was amazing.
That's funny. What's funny. Because Bubba, and this isn't a spoiler anymore, because it's another character that goes with Rand into Ruidian. It's not Moiraine. They don't go at the same time. They do both go, but they don't go at the same time. And it's that other character that is just unloading a whole bunch of stuff and leaving it at the spear line. So that's the fun part of that. That was a nice little nod. So let's go into Ruidian with Rand.
Heck yes.
Moiraine.
Heck yeah.
We've already talked about a couple of bullet points I have on here. What'd you think of the statue, the entrance, everything like that, Bubba, as a show watcher? How impressed were you? Did you get the impression that this isn't kind of, the Aiel are running around in tents, and this thing seems pretty darn nice for a city, despite the fog?
Yeah, but it also seems a bit like a haunted city, a bit like a cursed city. I forget the name of the cursed city we met in season 1, but this is almost of the old world. And so, of course, you're not going to live in this place. I thought the tree was the first. This sounds silly. The fact that they go in the kind of the first landmark they hit was a tree, I found shocking. But of course, the story really pays that off well. I thought the fact that we heard about somebody else who had gone through the trial Matt's going through, and then we see this person suffering because of how what a weight it must put on you. I thought once again, almost everything in the city was great. The rings were great in what it meant to be in the rings when Aviendha and Moiraine were in them, visually perfect. And we can go story point by point, but I think once again, I said it earlier in this podcast, it really shows there's been a lot of thought put into this. The fact that the Tinkers were originally the Aiel and how they came to use the spear, and then how they were betraying their ancestors and betraying their ancestors' oaths. I thought it was great. I mean, there's almost nothing in this that won't blow me away as being perfect. I haven't read the books, but it sounds like everybody loved it. This is great.
I love how they use the tree to establish almost a kind of a destined connection between Rand and Moiraine. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. The only issue that I have with it is we saw Moiraine being so much older than her younger sister, and then in season 2 we see her sister being that old. You got to figure that Moraine's uncle is probably at least 20 years older than Moiraine. So how old, even if it was 20 years ago, he'd be Moraine's age now.
Look how the tables have turned. I was pointing this thing.
And I was saying, no, that's okay. It's okay.
And people were like, yeah. And now you're bringing this up. I said it was a problem.
You said it was. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. As usual, Priscilla's always right, folks.
Is this going to ruin maybe our discussion? But a part of me, again, I don't really know anything. The fact that Moiraine used the one power to get the relic out of the tree, I was like, oh wow, I don't know if you should be doing that, Moiraine. That felt like
shoplifting is a crime.
Upsetting the Aiel. Yeah, I was afraid of that.
Moiraine is just fulfilling her destiny as an English woman in a foreign land.
Here we go. Oh no.
No English persons were hurt during the portion of this podcast.
It's true. Come on.
It was just social
commentary. It was just social commentary,
one that I was not expecting.
Apologies.
Let's go down Rand's Meridian road trip, the Triple R. So he becomes his father and sees his mother dead and realizes that his baby's gone. Now, this is interesting because Bear brought up, Rand thinks that his mother was Aiel.
Right.
And based on what we saw in season 1 of that flashback, you would certainly think that his mother was Aiel. Remember how badass she was? So this is a shock that it's actually his father who's an Aiel. So you have to ask the question, if as long as we're building mystery boxes here, then who the heck is Rand's mother? Have we already heard that name in the show?
Ooh, wow. Okay. I didn't guess that, Matt. I would have guessed this is a puzzle that won't be solved for quite a long time.
It may be quite a while time. I just want to bring up the question so people keep it in their mind when I'm no longer here, and in season 5, they bring it back up again.
Well, there are some clues already there.
That's what I'm saying. There's been some clues.
Wow. Okay. Now that I know.
But I don't know that a TV only person could connect them yet, though. So
no, I think like episode 3, you learn that the Aiel actually take foreigners. They adopt
kids. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Who knows? We don't know.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yes, you will. Call me in 2 years once you have. Mandine is the second trip, and the first one was not in the books. The first trip was not in the books, but I loved how it established the connection that Rand is going to have with each of these characters, with all of that anguish coming out of that first one, and how hard it is to push through as Moodine, or however you say his name, as he's clawing his eyes out in front of him. But Mandine is called to Meridian by Latracidai. This is the older version of the one that we see later on in the thing, but that's also the woman that Lews Therin was arguing with about what to do about the Dark One in the flashback.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. I got it. Wow.
Yeah.
I said I live a long time then, or can. Wow.
Yeah,
They can live a long. Look at how young Moiraine looks and how much older she is. You know how old her little sister is, and she's. If you look back at that season 2 painting, Moraine's already looks like she's in her 30s when that girl's in her teens.
Matt. Stop bringing this up.
Okay. We're depressing Priscilla.
Anyway,
Matt,
so we're seeing the creation of the purpose as to why the clan chiefs and the wise ones have to go to Viridian in order to become leaders. The creation of the glass columns, the fact that the Sakarnan was used to do all of this. Very powerful sangreal, you know, the way it magnifies power. And Latra, of course, was a very powerful Aes Sedai. Anything about that particular one? I think that spear, I don't think Mandine got out of there. He says, I do not fear the past. We've done no wrong, blah, blah, blah. So he's one of those people that kind of like Khuladine's brother probably can't get past the fact that the Aes Sedai had to live a peaceful way. That's how they became oath breakers. And I'm betting that his spear is the first one that was ever left there on the line.
Well, let me say that it's this next one that reveals their peaceful origins that I thought was one of the most powerful ones there was. And It's also, if anybody wants to go back and listen to our podcast on season 1, when Perrin was spending so much time with the Tinkers and talking about, got to be peaceful. I think I even brought up an example of like, yeah, you got to be peaceful, but what about somebody's, attacking your sister? I get it. I get that they broke an oath, but I mean, come on. What happened to his sisters were terrible. And I didn't blame him at all. Break your oath, man. You're cool with me.
Hey, that's understandable. Yes, you were very down on the Tuatha in season 1, if I recall correctly.
Just being so strict. I mean, peacefulness is great, but there is a point where you do have to, stand up for your people, for your way of life.
I understand that too, but we see countless times and times again before that, because it has been passed down through the generations, that Latra Sedai herself, her younger self, when she sent them off with the tree and the Sarkanan, she says, we know that the male sangreal is in a place of fortitude, of basically a fortress, a place of war, and so therefore, the balance of the Sarkanan being given to through a gesture of complete peace is so important. It also kind of demonstrates the difference between the way the men and the women use the one power. Men have to kind of use the one power forcefully. Logain in season 2 says you have to take it, you have to do it like that. Whereas also in season 2, we're taught by the Aes Sedai that you have to let go. Think of a flower petal opening up and all of this other stuff. Very submissive. And that's the way that the different powers are. And so therefore the peace and the fortress, or the instrument of war, are great representations for the use of the one power itself.
But Matt, all you're telling me is why men and women, why they should be working in unison and not split apart like this. That's all I'm hearing.
But that's what it was great in the Age of Legends. They were working together.
Yeah. And this scene is so powerful how it ends when his mom is like, who are you to call me mother? I had a son that kind of looked like you. Brutally powerful. So good.
That actress was amazing. That broke me. That scene absolutely
broke everybody. That broke everybody.
I mean, I had to pause the episode. And take a couple breaths when they came out of that. I was... That's and really Yosha's performance throughout all of this was amazing too. Every one of those characters was him either in prosthetics or what have you. And the whole thing with that one, particularly, basically Luwin is a hobbit and he's got his two little hobbit friends, Matt and Perrin, with him,
Yep.
even though it's not really Matt and Perrin, but they purposefully did that. I loved that. Just everything about this particular one was amazing to me.
It was great.
Alan Arden, I can't remember his name, the old guy.
Adam.
Yeah, him banishing him like that.
Not cool.
Yeah, well, because he learned from his grandfather, which we see in another vision.
I'm
actually, the next
curious
one.
to know how he found a wife, because it was just him and his grandfather, and how they came to be so many.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, they I guess Adden was kind of productive. I don't know that Jonai was. Listen, if I'm Jonai and I'm hauling that cart by myself with just a little kid helping me pull it, I'm having a heart attack before I even get up the first hill. That's dedication, but also highly dangerous, highly stressful. I'm at very least pulling a calf muscle. I know that. This is the one that actually with Jonai, and we see the young Adden, who is his grandchild, where we see the split off of the Tuathalan, the people that we met in season 1. These are their descendants of these people's descendants, and the whole thing of do you know the song? And the last time that they ever hear the answer yes seems to be when Jonai says it. And Jonai says at this point, our fires are always open to you, meaning that it's a rule that the Aiel must. I guess I should go back to Luwin and say that the split off of the Aiel war culture happens with Luwin, where he says, no, we're going to stick around and protect.
Yep.
And Latra Sedai brings up in the one prior that there are no more original Aiel left. You're part of a fracture, and obviously we know that the Tuathalan are part of a fracture of that.
Yeah. But what I understood is like the traveling people, they kind of gave up the tree part of trying to find a safety for the tree.
Yeah.
And they went still.
They just went on their own way to grow, to try and grow their own crops and whatever.
They still went through the way of the leaves, kind of way.
They maintained the way of the leaf, but they did not fulfill the mission. Yeah. And
then we have the other thing with the grandson.
Yeah, Luwin and all that.
Grandson with let's protect them. That's why they are oath breakers twice, something.
Yeah, terrible. I accept it. I'm like, hey, defend your sisters. So, hey.
I mean, from their standpoint, he should just sneak in the camp, rescue the sisters, and die rescuing their sisters.
Yeah. Well, in some ways he did. Now he's got to pull up a handkerchief over his face. So he is kind of a different person.
Yeah.
Matt, it is so fun. Let's jump another generation back, maybe more than that, to see kind of this modern world with the wagons having, actual steel cases within them, and the fashion of how it was. And I believe this is, right before the world broke, probably the most recent time. Incredible. Really great.
Yeah, that this one is occurring. You saw how red the sky looked and everything as the wagons were leaving and everything.
Yep.
The world is breaking. That's a whole bunch of male channelers just going crazy. So I love that. The thing is, and you brought this up earlier, Bubba, do we think Latra Sedai did the right thing by entrusting the Sarkhanen to a peaceful people? It's a long journey to wherever they end up. I can only imagine. I think yes, but it's easy for me to it's easy for us in the present day of the Wheel of Time to see the result. It ends up in Moiraine's hands. Well, that must be for some reason.
Let's hope. It must have been the right move because look at how long it's lasted, how long it has been in the hands of good and not in the hands of evil. So I think
It's
so
true.
far so good.
All right. Excellent. Yeah, I kept anybody except now Moiraine. I mean, what she thinks she can use this thing? Yeah, I don't know. So that was lovely. I loved the oath that all of them swore to maintain peace and all of that stuff. I thought that to Latra herself. I loved the debate with her, I guess her number two saying, you know, why are you doing this? Which is the whole reason that I brought that other question up because and I find Latra's logic in that hopeful. I'm not sure that I find it completely sane, but hopeful.
No.
And like you said, it's panned out. So I guess there's no reason to question it. And then we get to the actual dark one seeping into the world. I also love that, you know, Meryn, even then, was true to Lanfear's way in the fact that, you know, you got to fight for someone who you love, which she was already doing with Lews Therin, even as she's talking to that guy and saying, go sing your song. But she's not evil yet. She really thinks she's doing this out of good.
Matt, that's another one I've got to jump in and say, just because you're saying, oh, go be with the one you love, an evil person could say that. A manipulating person could say that.
Sure.
So during the episode, I have to be honest, I wasn't sure if Lanfear, this Meryn Sedai, was just a scientist who went too far, or if they were shady and evil. So you guys have kind of revealed, no, she wasn't shady and evil.
I'll give you a further spoiler since you've made that kind of conclusion also, and I've spoiled you already. Yeah, Meryn doesn't flip over to the dark side until after this event.
Yeah, well, this would do it. You know, I mean, when you've had something this horrific happen, you know, you might as well say, okay.
Well, how did she even survive? I mean, the whole lab
turns.
came crashing down.
The wheel turns, Matt, as the wheel turns.
And that's, you know, Rand's final ancestor that he visits with gets to go and do the harvesting, and they're singing a song. Is this the song that the two Athalan are asking? Do you know the song? Is it?
Mm-hmm.
You'd assume, yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to say anything else. And now I'm making you doubt yourselves because I asked the question. I should have just kept my mouth shut.
No, you're always right.
So Rand gets his tattoos. Very lovely. I love that. That was great visual effects, or however they did that. I don't know how they did that, but it looked beautiful. And then he finds Avi, and another scene that just broke me was him apologizing for not knowing anything, for admitting to her and apologizing to her that he only knows, even now, only knows enough to understand that he'll never fully understand. That was like the most adult. I can't bash Rand this season. This is the most adult I've ever seen him be.
Incredible.
And Yosha is just killing it. Every one of those roles, just amazing. I was flabbergasted. So anything about Rand's visions that anybody else wants to say, since I've taken up 90% of the conversation?
No, but this goes back to a point that I said maybe 2 hours ago, and that is that I wish Egwene had a scene with Rand, a real meaty scene with Rand before he went on this, because he's going to return a changed man, and it would be nice to see how the, you know, pre-journey Rand and Egwene interact in a good scene before the changed Rand and Egwene interact.
I love how they demonstrated it at the very end of the episode. Egwene comes up and grabs his head and everything, and him and Moiraine are just staring at each other. They both got like 1,000-yard stares. Moiraine looks at him, he looks at her, a tear comes to his eye. I'm not even sure he's aware Egwene is even there. You know, he's been deeply affected by this.
Yeah, the truth is that they should not even be together at this point. So it should not even matter if they had a scene or not, because no, honestly, like,
yeah, but they haven't. Here's the crazy thing: is that they haven't really They broke up in the first episode, but there's still this kind of coupling between them. So you say they shouldn't be together. The show has to show that.
It's because of lanfear. I think they want like something more of a breakup type of situation, because in the books it's more of like a conversation that happens.
It's actually, there's decent reasoning in rather than some kind of crazy Forsaken thing. Speaking of crazy land, let's talk about the Triple M.
I just want to say something about the whole Rand travel into the past thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that like the thread of the story that connects him to his blood relations, like his paternal line? I'm not even sure if he was aware who his father was before that.
Good point.
But he never really sees any other or doesn't consider anything other than Tem being his father. So maybe he thought that his father was Tem. What do you think?
Huh. I hadn't thought of it, but certainly he could assume that, yeah.
He could assume that Tem got on with the Maiden of the Spear, right?
Sure.
And
there for months and months and months on Dragon Mountain until the son was born.
Yeah, I don't know. Or that it was another person, because he's claiming the Aiel heritage through his mother.
Yeah.
Because that's what he knows. Now he knows that he knows nothing.
Yeah, if he could have only come to that conclusion in season 1.
Yes.
The Triple M.
Triple M?
Yeah, Moiraine's murderous manifestations.
Oh, boy.
All the futures that she sees. She takes the Sarkana. Bad girl. That's shoplifting. She's got one in the fish hut with Swan. She's got many killing Rand in many different ways. Some of them as the Amyrlin, some of them not, I guess. Why she's the Amyrlin, I don't know. But Egwene was her second when Rand was in his dandy little outfit. I thought
when we saw the trailer, I thought it was actually Swan. Remember?
Or was it Swan? Maybe it is Swan.
No, I don't know. I think it was Egwene.
He says Egwene. He says the name Egwene.
I think it was Egwene. Yeah. But when it was the trailer that we saw that, I thought it was Swan for sure. But it was Egwene.
Yeah. She's got some of her bonding, releasing Land from his being a warder, taking Rand as his new warder. Some of them are, they're all, I got motion sickness watching it.
No, I didn't. I
thought it was so well done. I was so into it. I wanted to stay more there.
All of our heroes, and one of them were wearing black and standing with lanfear. Whoa, wonderful!
Yes, all of our Power Rangers.
They
were Forsaken. Well, I guess you wouldn't call them Forsaken. Dark Friends. That was great. Every last one of them, and they looked fabulous. That's what I call the goth kids. From the trailer.
It works.
Yeah, it did. It really did work. Gruesome, just gruesome. I don't know how many times poor Rosamund Pike had to put on, one of those patches on her neck.
No. Come on. Before that.
Oh,
Moiraine and Rand having.
Yeah, they were getting busy.
Yeah, they were getting busy. And then it turns out that it wasn't Rand at all.
Moiraine and lanfear also. Yeah. And lanfear, every scene.
9 out of 10 shots features lanfear killing Moiraine.
So many.
And 1 out of 10 shots features Moiraine killing Rand, basically.
Yeah.
Well, let me say that, again, I haven't read the book, so I can tell there's no way there's a version of this story where the good guy team are all standing behind lanfear dressed in black and attacking Moiraine. That's a future that will not pass.
That's my fantasy story right there. That's the stuff of fan fiction.
Oh, brother, here we go. That is one that will not pass. The others, I don't think I would ever see Moiraine and Lan as intimate like that. Moiraine and Rand.
Well, she was releasing. Rand. I thought you said Lan.
Yeah, I did accidentally, but I meant the one. There's no way there's going to be a real future on the show of Moiraine and Rand being that intimate. I don't think so. I don't think that'll be real. Which one? I could though really see Moiraine dying at Lanfear's hand, but I hope it's almost like a spoiler alert: Dumbledore dying, where yeah, she dies, but it's almost for a good cause.
Okay. All right. Well, they showed an awful lot more of those. So is there a higher percentage of it happening? Who knows?
Ooh, I wonder. Yeah.
Because the last 7-8 shots just over and over as my eyes were spinning to the back of my head.
Yes.
Of Lanfear just slicing. Again, I'll say Rosamund Pike. How many times did that poor girl have to get that application put on her throat, to make the blood splurt out?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was CGI blood. They do that a lot of times nowadays, so I don't think it's the old squib packs. I wouldn't think.
Okay.
It was distant. It was a distant shot anyway, so you don't see exactly.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
because they want the splatter and the spray to go exactly the way they want. That's why I think they don't use the squibs as much as they used to. But either way, horrific.
Well, I'll say the CGI was good enough that I couldn't tell. Let me just put it that way. Anything else about Moiraine's murderous manifestations?
Oh, I I wanted to know more about how Moiraine and Rand got together in that possible future, because it looked in Kyrian, right?
Yeah.
Good catch.
And Lanfear and Moiraine somehow made more sense.
Naughty.
No, I think so, because
I think the whole purpose of showing those two being together back to back was the fact that Lanfear was portraying Rand.
No, I didn't read that. I thought it was like a possible.
Well, the location
future.
was exactly the same.
No, yeah, but there is a possible future where Moiraine seduces Rand, and they're trying to get control over him, and there is a possible future where like this whole alliance with Lanfear actually means something else.
Well, you seem to understand how a king of subtext Rafe is better than either of us, so I'll take your word for it.
I'm just sharing what I understood from the scene that I understood differently from you, but you can also interpret like as you did, because Lanfear has been appearing with the faces of people.
No,
but
only until around Riyadh.
In the world of dreams, and we are seeing possible futures. So that means possible futures, like possible realities that Moiraine is seeing. So that's what I make.
You could see a possible future until around Riyadh too.
No, I don't.
How would you know
so.
the difference?
I don't know.
I don't think Moiraine would experience a possible future in the world of dreams. She's experiencing a possible future had her choices have been different.
We may never know.
I don't know.
I don't think so. I think in this you are completely
I'm making a joke. Come on. Let's move on, please.
Matt, I think Priscilla went to law school. She's got this down. She's looked at the facts. She's making the case. Priscilla, you convinced me. Yeah. You convinced me.
All right. Music analysis is next. Skip ahead about 6 minutes if you don't want it. I'm talking about two themes that we already know, but they were given slightly harmonic and functional contexts in these two episodes. So today we're going to just talk about two things real quickly. One from episode 3, one from episode 4. And one of the things that I really, really enjoyed was the return of Matt's Heroes of the Horn theme. Is to remind you that before he blew the horn, he probably didn't know how to use a quarterstaff, at least not quite that well, when he beats Galad and Gai'don. But as the fight begins, you hear that theme to remind you that there's more than just Matt there now. Sounds like this. And then that is followed by some things that we do associate more with Matt, that guitar strumming. One of the things that I love is that the guitar strumming actually starts in the key that is the same as the 5 or the 5th note of the scale of the hero theme. What that does is it creates a tension. You've got the established thing. Matt is more than he appears. And then by going to the 5 chord to start all of the strumming and everything, you suddenly shift to what we call a dominant key. And what that dominant key does, it feels like, just for a couple moments, like it needs to lead back to where the hero theme started. What that does is it helps create some tension for the fight. Because musically, we've already told you that Matt's more than what he appears to be. So we fully expect him to win the fight, but you got to have some kind of musical tension coming from the dominant in order to make the fight at least seem like it's something that Matt could lose, even if for only a couple of seconds. And then the visuals allow it to sound happier and feel better. That Heroes of the Horn theme, or an additional theme for Matt, is something that I've really loved, but it's not so much in the fact that the theme itself is done in that way. I mean, the voices, the timbres, what I'm talking about, the instruments that are used, and the vocals and all of that makes it really great, and that's a great orchestration for that. But it's the way that it always leads in. It leads in from a place that's kind of deceptive. You feel like you're starting from a place that's different than where it ends up, and that's because of these 2 chords that lead in. That creates this sense of wonder, which is, it's wondrous what has happened to Matt. The way that it does that is it uses what we call the Lydian mode. The Lydian mode is the 4th mode of the scale, and it has a weird note in it from a major scale. I mean, it's based on a major scale. It's just starting on that major scale in a different place. And that Lydian note, that raised 4th, has always given music almost kind of a magical feeling. Yoda's theme, E.T., a couple of themes in Lord of the Rings by Howard Shore. All of these use Lydian mode really well to present something that's kind of bigger than the normal world. And then the key is really established by placing that dominant in. And the transition from that last chord that I played into that dominant chord is really just a difference of 2 different notes. There's one common tone, and that's what allows it to really punch you in the gut before everything else kicks in. Now, as for the other theme, for Moiraine, as she's in the rings and seeing the visions, something that was done here was really nice. Moiraine's theme, and essentially kind of the main theme, was played very lightly, sung very lightly actually, over the top of this sliding, descending bass note that starts on the root of the key and goes down to the flat 7. That always gives you a sinking feeling, and those visuals are quite sinking, right? And like I said, it's very light that you hear Moiraine's theme over the top of it, but this is all about Moiraine, so we should hear it. And while my piano cannot do the sliding any justice, it sounds like this. Now, obviously, when you heard it on the piano, you just hear 2 notes being hit. And that does have a certain effect, a certain syncing effect, because that bass note's really not supposed to go with that melody note. But what really makes it effective is the fact that the pitch is bent from the first note to the second note downward. That creates all of those microtones in between the 2 notes. It's not just one note to the next. On a piano, there would only be one additional note in between those 2 notes. But here, you can have a multitude of notes. And that's the way we humans hear music anyway. Microtones are the way that the physics in the world make us human. We're drawn to certain types of tunings. Really, in tune chords don't follow equal temperament. And what this bending down does is it allows us to feel all of those microtones in between what I played as a D and a C. And that resonates with us on a more human scale. And that's musical analysis for this week. We know you're going to have more feedback for us after this episode, so please leave it with us. Again, MatthewMurdoch.psky.social on Blue Sky. That's the only place I am. Double PHQ is all social medias. Bubba's brave. He's still on Twitter. He's still out there on Instagram. He's on Facebook. I can't believe some of the places he's at. Priscilla is at Priscilla TV1 on YouTube. If you leave mean comments about her, I will get you.
Hit us up. Leave YouTube comments, even if the show is frustrating you. We want to know. This is an open place for everybody.
It's a safe space. All right. And thanks for sticking around for the spoiler-free section. If you got all the way to the point here, I don't know that I'm going to add that much to your enjoyment of this episode, but I wanted to talk about a couple of spoilers specifically that came from the threefold land as opposed to the rest of the story. So we're going to do that right now. And I'm just going to put a blanket spoiler of all the books. Memory of Light. If you haven't read that far, I don't want to spoil anybody who hasn't gotten that far in the books. And I don't even know that I will. I don't know where I'm going with all of this, but just in case I happen to go into a place where you haven't read yet, I don't want to be the person who did it to you. So if you haven't completed the series, then maybe, skip over this one. So let's just start with Melindra. We've known for a while since they put out the press release about the character of Melindra that she was going to be Malkiri instead. I think we've even talked about this before, but regardless of that, the fact that Matt isn't there in Ruidian, and I tried to strike out all the stuff about Matt being in Ruidian in the spoiler-free part. Hopefully I did that. But if Matt's not going to be there, Melindra, of course, attacks Matt. It's at the beginning of book 5. I don't even remember which book it's in, but it turns out that she's a dark friend. Will Melindra be a dark friend in this series as well? It would be kind of interesting and maybe an interesting storyline for Lan if he's got this Malkiri survivor who is basically, one of his subjects. There might be a conflict if he had to try to kill her. I don't think they're going to go with the whole, love affair thing. Obviously, he just gave Nynaeve his ring, so I don't think that's going to happen. But you can still make it if it turns out that she is a dark friend, it would still be very hard for Lan to kill her, even if he had to, simply for the fact that she's one of the few subjects of the Malkiri that he knows of. I mean, other than the people that he knows up closer to the Blight. So that's interesting. It's an interesting storyline that they could pursue. I think I have on my bingo card that Melindra is not a dark friend. So, that'll just be another strike against me. I think there's only one row that I can complete. I think the misses that I've had already have pretty much struck out any chance of me being able to score bingo for this season, because I went the exact opposite. I said what won't happen instead of what will happen. So we won't even know the results of everything until how bad my bingo card was until we get to the end of the season. Anyway, I wanted to start with that. Here's the big one that I want to talk about, and that is the Sakarman or Sakarnan. How do you say that? My mouth gets all twisted up. So apologies for that. But in the books, it's a male sangreal, if I remember correctly. And I think it's Demandred that has it, if I remember right. But the thing is that, Lanfear obviously wants it, and they've made it into a female sangreal, as we find out in episode 4. Latra Sedai even uses it to create the glass columns. Who knows? And to put the fog into the Ruidian city after the last of the original Aiel have died. So the fact that they're doing this and they still keep mentioning Kalendor, even though Kalendor has flaws, we know that Cadsuane pointed out some of those flaws, and that even some female channelers can use it in some ways and what have you. But are they going to just get rid of the Chosen Call altogether? And instead just use these two symbols or these two sangreal as the most powerful ones. It would beat having to have a storyline where you've got to know the big hand with the globe like you do in the books. And I think it's book 2, where you first see the male Chosen Call, and then you find out later that the female Chosen Call is In fact, on one of the island of the sea folk, if I remember right. So you can get rid of all of that part of it just by saying, okay, we've got the Sarkinen now, or Sakarnen. You can figure maybe in season 4, season 4, if they get it, they could have Rand bring the Aiel to Tyr to get Kalendor. So do you need the Chosen Call? And for that matter, if you're having Matt come with Nynaeve and Elayne to Tanchico, I know that he goes with them to Ebadar in book 7, and that whole story is centered around the Bowl of Winds. I don't think they're going to do the Bowl of Winds. They haven't given any indication that there's been any kind of climate change. That could change. That could change by the end of this season, for all I know. But they haven't given any sense of urgency for the need for it yet. And if you don't need the Bowl of Winds and you don't need the Chosen Call, do you need the Sea Folk? I understand they're important. Don't get me wrong. I do understand they're important. But is this one of the ways where they could cut some corners and get this thing down to 6 or 7 seasons? Because, we're still basically doing book 4 stuff and we're already in season 3. You can't have actors keep coming back over the course of, at least 8 books worth of stuff. That's 16 years in between seasons. It just won't work. You can't do that unless you do something drastically to the story to make them all age, because they're just naturally going to age. They're not going to look the same age they are now. And I'd rather that they cut corners with the storylines from the books. And you can cut a lot of stuff out from the slog as well. So I think there's a way that they can cut corners and get this thing down in a minimum of 6 seasons. I would hope for 8. But even that's a stretch for asking these actors to stay involved for this long, because Game of Thrones tried to do that. And you saw the differences between, Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner in terms of just the differences in their age, the differences, the way that everybody looks, when really not as much time has really passed. And they were filming to where they were releasing just about every year up until the 7th and 8th season. So the way contracts work these days, I just don't think you can do that to certain actors. Now, of course, Rosamund can get out of it. She could get out of it even by the end of this season and only have to come back for a last season. If they do whatever the equivalent to the doorway that they're going to do, if they do it at the end of the season, which I'm still suspecting that they will, but I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, my point is you can cut some storylines here, and maybe you can introduce the sea folk in some other way. They're obviously not taking them to Tanchico, or maybe they are. Maybe they're going on a boat. Will they even mention that they were on with sea folk? I don't know. That's really from episode 3. I just wanted to say that I think that the Sakarnen and Kalendor are going to be your only big Sangreal, because I don't even know if we're going to get Demandred, to be perfectly honest. And since they've changed it over to a female Sangreal, then Lanfear's interest in it seems plausible, but to what end? I don't know if it's the end that she told Rand in Teleron Riyadh to actually destroy the Dark One. Maybe. I mean, we saw her in the 4th episode being just the scientist, but also fiercely still in love with Luce Theron, and that whole line about, whoever, fight for whoever you love, or it was, I'm of course paraphrasing, but that seemed very modern day Lanfear, underneath the layers of well-meaning Meryn, right? Here's another thing. When Rand found Aviendha, she's not very happy to see him, right? And you think about the futures that she saw. Is she seeing a few? Is she taken aback not only by the 2 tattoos. She sees that he actually is a Carcon, and she even still calls him a wetlander as she leaves. But did she see one of her futures with him? Did she see one of the futures of them being together? And that just scares the crap out of her, because up until that point, she didn't have any feelings for him. That might be horrible. Then again, Moiraine's thousand futures. Also, Rand's got to be getting some in every single thing. But he was so Rand's. I used to kind of be a Rand hater. I'm really not anymore. The show has made me feel much better about Rand, and really about Moiraine as well. So I've always loved Aviendha. There are lots of things about the Aiel culture that I just kind of grimace and look the other way most of the time. But that's just me. I'm just weird that way. And I guess the last thing that I really want to talk about is the song, because we heard a song of harvest this time. We know there were songs of growing in the book. And the whole reason that I asked Bubba and Priscilla in the first or in the spoiler-free part of the podcast, if we had heard the song that the two Othwan are talking about, is because of this post from Rent Almore on Blue Sky. It says, mildly surprised at the amount of readers claiming the song was confirmed. Guys, the entire point is that there is no song that will bring peace. There are songs of growing and this new song of harvest, but that is not the song. And I agree. It was kind of further down the line after the two Othwan split away from Jonai that I think they started believing that there was a song of peace. I know that there was a song that they all sang to the one male channeler that had gone crazy before he bail-fired that entire town. And they kind of kept him from doing that while people still got away. But is there really a song of peace? I think that's the point, is that, they may hear a song of growing and remember that from their hearts, or they may hear a song of harvest and remember that from their hearts. So technically, I guess that would be the song. But I think it's a beautiful point to make, that there is no song that will actually bring peace, because even though those people delayed this guy from killing all of them and destroying the whole town with Belfire, he still did it. They didn't stop it. They didn't cause peace. They just delayed war. So that's what I'm at. That's where I am with the song. I doubt many of you will agree with me, but I don't know. Maybe you do. Let me know. MatthewMurdoch.bsky.social, or you can hit up. Well, don't hit up Bubba with spoiler comments. He's not going to read any more books until after he's seen this season, and hopefully we can tell him what book to read. It's really weird that they're putting Tyr and the Aiel and the Threefold Land out of order, because Bubba may have to wait until the next season comes out until we can tell him he can read book 3. That's the way that it goes. It won't matter to me. I won't be here anymore. This is my last season covering anything for Double P. I'm retiring after this year. So, feel free to shout at me on the way out the door. Do that. You can also send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com. I think that's all I got. Thanks for sticking around this long. See ya.